Hello tacticians, it's Nox here, and today we're going to be looking at the Thousand Suns for use in the faction tournament arena. But before I get into them, I just want to say my usual thank yous, and today they go to Your Senpai, Salmon Facade, Force of Nature, Jay, and JJ, SM Bruden, and player 7246. All of you have used my friend code and it is very much appreciated as it really does help me out. So thank you once again. And now let's start with the Thousand Suns. First and probably foremost in the Thousand Suns faction is Yazaghor. This guy is really what elevates the Thousand Suns from being decent to downright absurd. He has a movement range of 4 and has a shooting range of 2, and that is absolutely important. That threat range of 6 is even larger than the threat range of 5 that the Orks have. The Thousand Suns have their Weaver of Fates, where in any turn where 3 or more enemy units have taken psychic damage, which is very easy for you to do, this unit will deal the maximum possible damage with its attacks and abilities on that turn, and that is one massive thing that you need to take care of when playing as them. And of course, Yazaghor can fly, which is important when you want to get him to those places to drop Abraxas. Next up you have the tank of the group, and he is extremely slow at movement too, so don't expect him to be running around after everybody. But although his normal attack is range 2, his active ability, the Hellfire Missile Rack, does actually have a range of 3 and will hit everyone on the map that was dealt psychic damage this turn. And remember, if 3 or more are damaged, you will be ignoring this range and it will always be the maximum amount for that level. Here we're looking at level 26, but obviously if you're working at Epic, you'll be wanting level 35. He's also really hard to kill with his Time Flux, because at the beginning of his turn, Toth heals an amount, plus an additional amount equal to the damage of the last hit he received. Then on top of that, when Toth moves, he leaves behind a time ghost on the hex he moved from. That ghost vanishes if the hex becomes occupied by another unit, or if the terrain becomes impassable, such as broken ice. And the first time Toth dies in battle, if this ghost is on the battlefield, he then revives. Now, bear in mind that if games go long, and I've had a couple go long now, you get the bombardment on all of the hexes. And when it gets to the very last turn, whoever's hit will die. And I've actually had a draw because of that. This guy, if it goes that long, he'll die. He will get back up. Your enemy won't, which could net you that win. He's a very survivable character, and I think a lot of people underestimate him. And of course, he probably will be the last one to die on your team. He also has suppressive fire, so because of his Terminator armor, which is next, he can literally walk into anyone who has got Overwatch, survive that onslaught, and then suppress them, or if he doesn't have to move, he can suppress them first. But quite frankly, he can take anything that's thrown at him. And Abraxas. This guy is your main way of winning matches, along with Yazaghor. And that is because of his Malefic Maelstrom, his active ability. So he'll first of all summon a pink horror on an adjacent hex next to Abraxas. And then, until the end of the turn, whenever an enemy is dealt psychic damage, it'll summon a Screamer of Tzeentch on a free hex adjacent to Abraxas, preferring hexes adjacent to enemy units. Newly summoned units can immediately attack an enemy in range, but they cannot move. The important bit here is with his passive ability, where friendly Chaos units adjacent to Abraxas deal an additional amount of psychic damage. And again, if people have been hit 3 or more times by psychic damage, it'll be the maximum amount, with their normal ranged attacks. Affected demons, such as the ones you're summoning, also gain the bonus on the hit of their normal melee attack as well. So he'll summon in a bunch of demons, and then the enemy has got to deal with all of those as well. And on Sun maps, if the enemy is within range of Abraxas, you summon them in first, switch places with the Yazaghor, and trigger it again with one of your other characters who can do psychic damage. It doesn't always work, but when it does, you will win that game. And Thaumachus. Again, he's another flyer. These Thousand Suns really like flying and ignoring any terrain, so that's a nice little bonus. However, it is his active ability, which I haven't seen many people use, so we'll be playing with this in the gameplay in a little bit, where he will target an enemy within 2 hexes. The target and any summons it has summoned become possessed and immediately perform a normal attack against the closest enemy unit, preferring unpossessed targets. Possessed units deal 90% of their own damage to a maximum amount per hit, and possessed summons will move before attacking. So Boss Golgots might have summoned in some of his troops, but Thaumachus can then possess Golgots and his summons to attack the Orks. His passive, the Arcane Shield, means after he is moved, he'll apply a shield to the closest friendly unit within 2 hexes. And that shield basically gives an additional amount of health, which can obviously then help you move to within range of snipers to then do what you want to do. This guy is an enabler. He will enable Abraxas to march in, hopefully unscathed, or if it really comes down to it, he might be able to just keep that character alive just for one more turn. And finally, Ahriman. Oh boy, this guy is just an absolute beast. Again, he flies and is a psyker, and his passive ability, the Psychic Stalk, means whenever an enemy unit anywhere on the battlefield that is on a hex with fire, and almost all of the Thousand Suns have some kind of fire attack, takes flame damage, or more importantly, psychic damage, the damage is increased by 40%. Of course, that hex has to be on fire first. On top of that, the hex of each enemy that is hit by Ahriman's normal ranged attack catches fire, so he can make sure that those people at range will be on fire, therefore doing more damage. But it is his Doombolt which really is a scary attack. It will deal a number of psychic damage hits evenly distributed between all enemies within 2 hexes, and it adds a hit for each hex on the battlefield that is currently on fire, and that can't exceed 9 hits. Now, to be honest, this will probably be around the 4 or 5 hit as you cast it, and again, this will either make sure that the rest of your units are going to hit at their maximum damage, or if you really have got a lot of fire, you're going to be hitting a lot of times at the maximum of this. But not only that, when he defeats an enemy with his normal ranged attack, Doombolt has already been used, then Doombolt can be then used again, which, considering its damage and utility, is a very nice thing to have for the Thousand Suns. So we've talked about them, let's see them in action. So here we have the Thousand Suns versus the Orks. Now, if you look at the danger zone, you've got this red path here. Now, if you actually look at each individual one, that red path is only Golgor's, and that's only whilst he's shooting. His range for the charge is his movement of 3 plus an additional 1, so a threat range of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which takes us actually 1 away. So what you can do, you can quite happily put Yazaghor here, and this will immediately put the Orks in a bit of a panic situation for their first turn. And by all means, move everyone else up and around however you see fit. Now it's the Orks' turn, so they have a choice. They can either try and move forward and kill Yazaghor with Boss Golgots, but as it's shooting, it's not going to do enough. Especially if I had actually moved this properly and made sure there was a shield around Yazaghor in the first place. So they're then left with 2 choices. Do they stay bunched up, in which case Golgot's at the front, or do they spread out? Here we're going to stay bunched up, because at least then we can protect the 3 at the back. Or maybe what we should do is try and protect Boss Golgot. So what we'll do, we'll move him here and him back, and let's put someone in front of Golgot, so at least he is protected. And now back to the Thousand Suns. This is where Yazaghor proves his weight in gold. He can move his 4, and then switch places with Sorceress Facade with Abraxas, nearly killing Snapperwrecker in the process. So then what we can do a couple of things. We can actually move 1 forward, I think, because we're now in the long grass, and we can still summon in a pink horror which will hit these 2, killing Snapperwrecker, Tank Smasher, and nearly killing Gibberscraps as well. And there you go. This has already neutered the Orks, and that's just by 1 attack. And what we can do for the rest of it is move forward. So the Orks, what can they actually do? Well, let's summon in the troops. We need to do as much as possible. And I'm sure they're going to pick up a few points And let's bring in the tank. But really, at this point, the game is already over. The Orks just haven't realised it yet. So the Orks are now left with two of their characters, one of which is Golgort, who is about to die. And the last one is Snotflogger, who might take a little bit longer to kill him, but trust me, he is equally as dead. And we may as well use the Hellfire missile rack to finish him off. Pretty good. The Tau are probably the Thousand Suns' worst matchup, but we can certainly start in the usual way of moving everyone forward and putting people in a position where at least we can possibly use them next turn. Now, the Tau know that they can happily move forward because they'll have protection from Ravas's Overwatch, and Ornshi will refresh that Overwatch because they can probably do it again next turn. We'll put the target lock on Yazaghor, as we don't want him doing anything if we can help it. We want to try and kill him off. And yeah, we'll just do that. What are we going to do as a Thousand Suns? Well, we need to probably run away, let's be honest. We can't move into this Overwatch area, so we're going to put Yazaghor here, and we're going to move Abraxas away so that we can guarantee the shield goes on Yazaghor, and we can then put Ahriman in here, and the shield basically saves Yazaghor's life. We've got the choice of Ravas. We could just go in and kill Yazaghor, but if we do that, we're not in Overwatch, and that will enable Abraxas to do his thing. So instead, we're going to take the health power up and go into Overwatch. Showsill will try and snipe Toth. Not doing much damage, but you know, the Markalite certainly helps if Toth wanted to try and get within range of Ravas here. And we'll get the shield power up with Shadow Sun, and may as well get the melee power up with Darkstrider. So now the Thousand Suns have got nowhere to retreat to. They have to do something, but do something they most certainly can. The first thing is they're going to pick up the damage power up and switch places with Abraxas. It kills off a drone as well, which certainly helps. Now we can't move within range of Ravas, as I believe with his Overwatch it will actually destroy Toth. Even though he has got Terminator armor, he has also got that Markalite. So we're not going to do that, at least not yet. Okay, let's assume we have to. Let's put the shield on Toth, and Toth is going to move up and try and tank this, which he does, if only just. And we're not going to use his Hellfire missile rack just yet. What we are going to do is take control of this drone. We'll go and shoot Showsill, and well, we've now got another drone which we can possibly hit with Abraxas, which is certainly good for us. So let's do this. Abraxas goes here and summons in the Pink Horror and the gang. Toth's ability will currently hit Darkstrider, so let's add a few more hits into that by moving here. And now, let's see what damage he actually does. Didn't quite kill off Darkstrider, which is a shame. Darkstrider probably should have died. So, I mean, he needs to get out of there, so we'll do the fighting retreat and probably end up killing... Actually, you know what? We're not even going to retreat. We're just going to kill Abraxas. And, well, we're going to try and kill as many of these as we can. So bear in mind, by killing Toth, you would actually get a point. So all that the Tau would have to do is kill 2 more, not all 3. But the summons have now done an absolute number on the Tau. But can the Thousand Suns come back from this? And I don't think it's an easy answer. We're certainly not going to send him up there. Shoot him. Let's get rid of Shadow Sun. There's them. Ooh. No, we have to kill Shadow Sun. Have to kill Shadow Sun. And let's now pick on the weakest. And as you can see, the Screamers really do hit very hard. And this is just a win for the Thousand Suns, but is only just to win. This would be a hardest matchup in the live faction tournament arena. So I'm not going to do a fight against the Death Guard. The reason being, I think that Death Guard wouldn't be too difficult because of how manoeuvrable the Thousand Suns are, and they would be able to get into position, which would benefit them, and I would think that the game would go the Thousand Suns' way. However, I did mention that they had a problem versus Overwatch, and so let's take the second best Overwatch team in the game, the Aeldari. So what would the Thousand Suns do here? Well, again, the only people who can get to this line is actually Morgan Ra. So we're going to see what Toth and Thaumachus, protecting him, if they can hold up against Morgan Ra. If we decide with Aeldari to go across and take a pot shot, we'll move Toth across, Ahriman up, and, well, it does matter where we put Abraxas. We don't want to put him here, so we'll put him over here. And here we have the Aeldari. Now, what are we going to do as the Aeldari? Well, by the looks of it, as an Aeldari player, you'd be eyeing that up and going, you know what, I'm not going to get through that shield. But there's a nice shield here for Calendis, so keep them protected. And what we'll do, we're going to get in a much better position for us. So a bit of a going around the map here. But what we can do now is put Yazaghor up, as we now know that he'll probably survive the shot from Morgan Ra, but we need to make sure he's not within range of Calendis. So the one who's going to take Calendis' shot is Toth. Pop, not much happening there. Thaumachus will pick up the power up and therefore put a shield on Yazaghor. And Yazaghor has to risk being shot at. And we're going to hope, and I do mean hope, that he doesn't die. And he doesn't. Because that means we can do the switch and indeed kill Morgan Ra, which then means we can move up with Abraxas, and we're going to focus on Eldrian first. He is probably someone we want to die very quickly, but will our summons kill him in the right order? They do indeed. As you can see, not doing much to Jane Zara, as she does have a damage reduction, but it doesn't help against magic, and we can then use Toth's AoE to do that. And at this point, the game is now absolutely over. All that the Aeldari can do is try and pick up a point, as the summons will finish the very weak Aeldari off. Overall, the Thousand Suns have got a very good place in the faction tournament arena. I think the reason we don't see them as often as we probably should is because Ahriman is a legendary character and needs 500 shards to unlock, which means not many people will actually have him, and certainly may not have even leveled him up high enough to use in the tournament arena. The main strength is with the range they have with Yazaghor. That threat range of 6 really does neuter the Orks. But of course, positioning is key, and if you don't get to summon in all of your summons with Abraxas, you could be left off in a very weak position indeed. Thaumachus is, as I mentioned earlier, a delivery system. That shield will keep the troops alive just long enough so that they can do what they need to do, and from then on, you tear apart the enemy. As with all the other ones that I've gone through, I would recommend that you try these out in the casual mode first before you take them into the arena proper, because you want to understand them before you just think that they're going to win for you, because they certainly won't, especially against the Tau, which, as I mentioned, is going to be their biggest problem. If you like these videos, then it would be much appreciated if you at least think about using my friend code, as it really does help me out. Or if you or your guilds are looking for a new home, please reach out to any of the guilds shown, as we'll always welcome new people into our midst. As always, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you on the battlefield.